I think it will appeal to people like me who don't want to choose, in a sense, who want to bring together, the full range of their interests, the kind of critical and the creative.
Hello and welcome back to Future You, the podcast brought to you by graduate careers experts Prospects. I'm your host, Emily Slade, and in this episode, we chat about the MA Arts, Culture and the Environment, available at the University of Manchester.
Hello, my name is Dr Kelechi Anucha, and I'm a lecturer in Literature and Environmental Justice at Manchester University. I'm also the Programme Director for the new MA in Arts, Culture and the Environment, and I'm really excited to be here today. So unexpectedly, my research started with, unexpectedly for somebody who's thinking primarily about environmental injustice, in questions of environmental crisis. My research actually started with a focus on the human and on the individual. So my doctoral work was looking at this genre called the illness narrative, which is a kind of subcategory of a type of writing you might understand as life writing or memoir or autobiography. And these types of writing that kind of think about this first person individual experience of illness. The more I kind of examine this genre, the more it became clear to me that what you have is an experience which can be quite monolithic sometimes. And I was really interested in thinking about how we might open up the types of kind of subjective experience, which might be occluded from this kind of quite conventional formal structure. So who's allowed to speak and who doesn't speak within that space. And that led me naturally to start to think about how illness, disability, and these kind of experiences are mediated by our environment and in questions of environmental crisis. So that's how I kind of found my way here. And then parallel to this kind of work, I was engaging in a kind of creative practice, essentially, alongside my research. And what became clear to me eventually is how the two are constantly informing each other. So why this program is so special to me is because I think it will appeal to people like me who don't want to choose, in a sense, who want to bring together, the full range of their interests, the kind of critical and the creative, constantly kind of in conversation with one another, essentially. And I think the kind of system in the UK, we specialize very, very early, as early as kind of secondary school, you're kind of starting to think about what your life is going to look like. So this is a kind of opportunity to open out the kind of different modes of engagement, essentially.
So what are the aims of the MA?
When I think about the student who has just completed this MA, this is somebody who is informed, culturally aware, kind of responsible, and kind of committed to a form of collaborative and collective engagement or action at a local scale, or perhaps thinking on a bigger scale as well. This is somebody who will have had the opportunity to cultivate their own way of responding, whether that's critically or creatively. So there'll be opportunities for students to design their own research, essentially, both in the core modules and obviously as part of the kind of final assessment or dissertation element of the program. But really that can look a number of different ways. There's an openness we're seeking to embed into the kind of assessment practices such that the assessments, there'll be a range of different assessments for a range of different learning styles. And that feels especially important in relation to questions of diversity, equality, and inclusion. The key aim is to support students to develop and cultivate their own independent, environmentally oriented, critical and creative practice, and gain a variety of skills that will help them to go on to do the type of kind of project-based and kind of community engaged or collaborative work that much of the kind of arts and culture sector is really kind of organized around at the moment. So hopefully those are a couple of the things that students should be able to kind of access as a result of the kind of program.
Yeah. Can I just loop back to the idea of the assessment process and how open it is, that it's based on a range of different learning styles? Can you expand on that a bit more?
So there is, with the dissertation, there's two streams. There's essentially, you can approach that assessment as you would a kind of more conventional academic assessment. So essentially a long, extended piece of writing, which might follow the conventions of a kind of journal article or a book chapter, book type of academic writing that we're familiar with. But there's also there's the opportunity to design a project in collaboration with our community and cultural partners. So that might look like something more along the lines of a kind of publicly engaged project where you might put together a proposal, for example, with a partner, a community partner, to engage a specific audience in a specific environmental issue or question in relation to the kind of disciplinary strand of your choice. So, for example, we'll talk more hopefully about the core modules, but one of the core modules is called Creative Ecologies. And within that module, there's the option to kind of look at case studies concerning literature and ecology, visual art, performance, curating, participation, community engagement. So there's a wide range of different avenues into a kind of creative practice that's environmentally oriented.
Amazing. That's so cool. So let's stay within the core modules. Would you like to expand on the one you've already mentioned and then tell us about the others?
Yeah, creative ecologies. That's one that we're really excited about because it will look very different to anything that we've done before. It's organized around a kind of workshop structure, and the idea is that kind of artistic, culturally. Well, the idea is that kind of arts, culture, and kind of artistic approaches have a key role to play in addressing the kind of intersecting concerns of our current environmental crisis. So we've got these workshops, which will be led by academics and specialists across the School of Arts, Languages and Culture at Manchester, who have strengths and focuses on disciplines such as performance and drama, art and cultural practices, literature, and also that work in kind of concert with community partners. And that will look different for each cohort. So probably best not to say too much about, leave that open, essentially. It's best to leave that open. But what I will say is that there's a focus in research in the principles aligned with research and practice. So taking some of the theoretical and the historical contexts that we'll be engaging with within the other core module and bringing that into the kind of a practice oriented approach. And also having time to engage with, we'll have workshops and time spent with creative practitioners and creative professionals. So students are having the opportunity to see different career trajectories modeled, which might, light up a light bulb somewhere and say, actually, what I imagined my career to look like or what I imagined my future to look like could be something quite different because I've seen this person who has this kind of creative practice, which is in the academy, but also involves working directly with communities that interest them, doing the kind of disciplinary work and approaches that seem to kind of fit best with their skill sets and interests. So that's really cool to me.
So you've kind of already mentioned this, but is it all desk-based theory or are there opportunities for more practical elements?
There's definitely a kind of strong practical or practice-based element as part of the program, not least because we have this kind of parallel stream of student enrichment where we're going to be looking at field trips and workshops in addition to the core modules, offering workshops again with these kind of creative practitioners and creative professionals to kind of give students this kind of window into what it might mean to bring together arts, culture, and the environment and ecology, questions of environmental crisis. And so we're perfectly situated here in Manchester. We're kind of looking out into the kind of Peak District, the Calder Valley on one side, and then we've got this kind of, this city with this enormous industrial heritage and this kind of legacy and precedent for meeting environmental challenges and anticipating, the kind of challenges that attend, contemporary ways of living and relating to one another. So I think there's something really exciting here, and we're very eager to get students out and, make the most of where we are situated historically and spatially.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much going on in the city. There's sort of bridge that they've turned into like a garden.
I've heard of it, and it's really, really exciting to think about what that might look like, looking back in kind of 30, 40 years. Like, very exciting.
Yeah. Again, you briefly touched on it, but who really would this course suit?
I think one of the exciting things about this course is that there is no ideal profile. You may be coming back to further study after some time spent in industry or time working in kind of the cultural heritage sectors, or you might indeed actually be aspiring to work in those sectors, coming to the program from a first degree. I mean, I can see it appealing to students who have a background in humanities, very broadly speaking. So, kind of literature, history of art, drama, film, languages, and then social sciences, such as kind of anthropology and sociology. But also, we've had interest from students with a STEM background who've approached us and said, could this be right for me? And our answer to that is absolutely yes. I think the only prerequisite is intellectual curiosity and a willingness to kind of engage with the shared idiom, the shared kind of critical and theoretical idiom across the humanities. So there are kind of different critical approaches and different kind of ways into this kind of emergent interdisciplinary field that we're calling the environmental humanities. But there are many points of access into that kind of critical conversation.
If somebody listening now wants to sort of double check with you as to whether they're okay, are they okay to reach out to you?
Absolutely. We're always like super excited to hear more about people who are interested in the course. It's also really interesting to hear how people might, what types of individual creative practice that they might be themselves bring to bear on the course. So if someone is very interested in, for example, bringing together questions of psychoanalysis and art and ecology and environment together, I think that could be something that's really interesting. Or, I mean, that's just one of many examples. But yeah, I think the short answer is we're always delighted to hear from people.
So what does the future look like for somebody taking this course?
So we've spoken a little bit about the idea of what you might call a portfolio career, which is something that is not unusual in the arts and culture sector. So having a variety of different kind of streams and types of work that might bring together work with community partners or institutions, specific community groups, a specific creative practice, and kind of project-based work. So I absolutely think that the skills that you might need to be flexible and agile enough to do to that kind of maneuvering within a developing arts and culture sector are absolutely built into the design of the program. I think what's also interesting to me is the number of prospective students who are also interested in moving into a more traditional and conventional career pathways within larger kind of institutions or organizations. And that speaks to the fact that many employers are increasingly understanding the value of what we might call green skills. So thinking about in a company whose remit isn't specifically targeted towards sustainability or questions of environmental change, you still have this kind of growing understanding of the need for specialist views and specialist consultation, advice, both formal and informal, around questions of sustainability, how to be in relation to the local community. I think that's really important. That's something that definitely is on our radar at Manchester University. So yeah, I think there's a number of different kind of outcomes or trajectories for prospective students that could be really rewarding and enriching.
Was there anything that we haven't mentioned that you would like to add?
Yes, I mean, just because this month or this term we've been teaching on critical ecologies, and myself and my colleagues have been teaching on critical ecologies. So this is a version of the of one of the core modules that we're teaching with a smaller group this year. And one of the things that's been really, really exciting, I've spoken a little bit about our cultural and community partners, but one of the really exciting opportunities that we had this year and that we will continue to bring forward into the new MA is the opportunity to work with the Manchester Museum, the curators and the team at the Manchester Museum. So it's always such a a rewarding experience. It's a special experience to be in the room with students the first time they're handling objects from Manchester Museum collection. So there's this aura, obviously, around the galleries and museums and the objects they're kind of stewarding and custodians of. So to get to kind of almost step behind the curtain and handle these objects and to speak directly to specialists and curators about their histories and connect these objects with the kind of critical theory and the historical context that they're engaging with as part of the core module, critical ecologies. I think that's a really special experience. And this week we were talking about, with students, talking about toxicity and the idea of the toxic as this kind of multivalent quality, which is not a kind of neutral scientific descriptor of or marker of environmental crisis, that it's a term that applies differently across geographies, across identities, and across, different groups, essentially. So I think that's always really kind of interesting for students to see how to materialize the thinking that they're doing. And that's really, I may find that really interesting. And it's a really exciting part of critical ecologies. I also think it's really important to note that the focus and the study of arts and culture are not frivolous. I think at a time where your students are feeling a kind of an increased pressure to justify economically any choices that they're making in relation to their careers, I think arts and culture have a really important role to play in our ability to kind of do what some thinkers have described as the capacity to imagine otherwise. That's a very convoluted way of saying that it's not frivolous to engage with these different modes of seeing and experiencing the world. I think an encounter with the art in the form of a work of fiction or a performance, or, within even the museum collections, has this really kind of unique capacity to catalyze change, on an individual scale, in the sense that you can be really transformed and inspired or impacted by what you encounter. But also it's this kind of collective and collaborative experience that has this capacity to really drive social change, or, bring people together in a way that awakens something socially motivated and oriented, which I think these kind of local community-based solutions are really important in any kind of attempt to address the question of climate crisis.
When it comes to the climate crisis, do you keep your research and therefore teachings as up to date as possible with everything that's happening in the world?
Absolutely. So the core modules are team-taught modules where we're drawing from expertise across the School of Arts, Languages and Culture, and the teaching is drawn directly from cutting edge research, recent research that colleagues and myself are doing in relation to specific concepts and specific ideas and questions. So there's always a sense of a kind of what's happening in the world feeding into what's happening in the classroom in really important ways. And also, the kind of independent research element and the kind of independent research design means that students are bringing what they're experiencing and seeing in the world, on the news, and at an individual level, they're bringing that into their research, and their research interests are kind of feeding into what's happening in seminars and in their kind of community and cultural, their experience with our community and cultural partners. So I'd say absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. So if people want to find out more about the course, are there places that they can go to?
So the first place to go would be our website, but you can always write to us in the admissions team or directly to myself. I'm always really happy to do everything that I can to respond to emails. So yeah, please email myself, email our admissions team, check out the website, and check out our social media at Manchester University for further information. We really, really look forward to meeting you, hopefully.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Lovely to speak to you, Emily.
Thanks again to Dr. Kelechi for their time. For more information on the course and how to apply, check out the show notes below. For a full-length video version of this episode, check out our YouTube channel at FutureUPod. If you enjoyed the episode, feel free to leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. Thank you, as always, for listening, and good luck on your journey to Future You.